Good morning, Lunenburg County. I'm sorry I missed your GOP meeting last night. The General Assembly session ran late, and I was speaking on a number of bills last night. The Democrats are continuing to try to hurt our small businesses, take away our Second Amendment rights, things that you and I just can't stand for in this nation. But I did want to take a second and share with you why I'm running for Lieutenant Governor and why this is so important to me and probably to all of us that we take back the Commonwealth. I've always believed if you want to know how much someone's willing to work for you, how much they're willing to fight, don't just ask them what they stand for, ask them why. And that's what I want to share with you. The first thing that I'm very passionate about is the American dream. The concept that this is a nation that allows people the opportunity to create something for themselves, the family, and maybe that next generation. And I learned that from the story of my great-grandfather who came here in the early 1900s. He had hardly anything in his pocket. He spoke broken English. He came from Italy, but he had a trade. You see, he ground blades and knives on big grinding wheels. My grandfather dropped out of school in the 8th grade to go work for his father and then went off to fight in World War II. And when he came back from Germany, he ran Escote's Beauty and Barber Supplies until he retired in the 70s. And I grew up sitting on a stool watching my grandfather and my uncles grind blades and knives. My mom tended to the clients, and that's where I learned about the American dream. The concept that you don't have to be born someplace special, you don't have to be born into money to create something for yourself and your family. You just have to have what's on the inside. You just have to have that American drive and determination to go out there and get it done. So when I lost my job 6 weeks before Christmas in 1999, I had two choices. I could move back in with mom and dad, or I could go start my own business. And I did the latter out of a one-bedroom apartment because I knew the story of my great-grandfather and my grandfather, and I knew all it took was determination to get it done. And 7 years later, it was one of the 100 fastest-growing IT companies in the U.S., according to Inc. magazine. And I don't say it was because I'm one of the smartest people you're going to meet, because I know a lot smarter than I. But I am one of the hardest-working people you're ever going to meet, because that's how I was raised. But that concept of the American dream is under threat right now. The ability for that next generation to go out and become that next generation of entrepreneurs and innovate is being threatened because of all the burdens and regulations that we're passing down onto our small businesses. And we have to protect that. The second thing that is very important to me and probably all of you out there, and I'm very passionate about, is the Second Amendment. Many of you may have heard me speak before that I shot competitively growing up in high school and also out of Langley Air Force Base, and that's true. But another reason why I'm so passionate, another experience that I've had, came at a young age. You see, I was 9 years old, sitting on a couch one day, and the phone rang. And my dad answered it, and it was about my Uncle William. You see, my Uncle William worked at a convenience store about a mile as the crow flies from where I live today. And that evening, the convenience store was robbed. And he was taken out back, shot, and left dead. And I remember everything that my family said in the weeks that followed that murder. They said that the murderer probably did it before, because it was before truth in sentencing and abolition of parole. They said that they wished my uncle had had his firearm on him, because he probably would have still been with us. But they never blamed guns. They never said there should be more gun control. They never said that we need to make sure it's harder for people to get firearms. I learned at a young age that we all love our public safety and our law enforcement officials. And they're great at catching the bad guy. And they're great at administering justice. But they're not there when that young lady gets abducted. They're not there when that home intrusion happens. And they're not there when that retail convenience store gets robbed. That's why it's our obligation to protect ourselves and our families, our constitutional and God-given right to protect ourselves and our family. And we need to stand up for that right. And that's why I continue to fight for that right in the General Assembly as a member of the Firearms Subcommittee, one of 3 Republicans and 9 Democrats that continue the fight against the Democratic push to take away those rights, and will always continue to do so. The third item that I'm very passionate about is our public safety. You know, it's sad that we've gone so quickly from a society where we would buy lunches for our public safety officers to one where people now are spitting in their lunches. You know, those that take care of us, those that put their lives on the line day in and day out, should be revered. They should be respected. We should hold them and appreciate them for what they do for us. But instead, they're being attacked like I never thought I'd ever see in my lifetime. I'm the son-in-law of a prior NYPD officer. You know, back in the day when he actually wore those old double-breasted jackets, and he passed away last year in his 80s, and I swear his biceps were still as big as my thighs. And I learned from him the challenges that our law enforcement officers had and continue to have, raising families on their salary. But they don't do it to get rich. They do it out of the passion that they have to help others and protect others. And we need to make sure that we stand up and protect them as well. I also learned something else from a law enforcement officer. You see, I graduated from high school in 1991. 10 years later, like many of us have, we have our 10-year reunion. And the night before, there was a gentleman that wasn't with us. You see, he was a Norfolk law enforcement officer. And that night, he was on duty. And the next night, we had a reunion, and he wasn't with us either that night. Because the night before, he was called to an apartment complex, and when he went to an apartment, he was shot and killed. And at the age of 25, I learned real fast two things. One, tomorrow's never promised. And two, that I was getting ready to go into a career field where my future family was going to have an expectation that I was going to come home every night safe and sound. But for others, whose their career choice was to put their lives on the line day in and day out to protect us and our family, their families wouldn't have that comfort. So we need to make sure we continue to stand up for our law enforcement officers, and I'll continue to do so. You see, I guess it comes down to one overarching theme. We all think about from time to time what we want our legacy to be when we're no longer on this earth. I don't have children, and I'm not going to have a name on a building. It's not me, and I don't have that type of money. But what I think we're all obligated to have as Americans, the one thing we're all obligated to make sure when we're no longer here, is that we pass on our country and our state as well off or better than we were blessed to have it handed to us. And I don't think we're on that track. I don't want to be in my 70s or 80s or 90s looking back saying, I don't like what is being left for my nieces and my nephews, and I could have or should have done something when I had the chance. That's why I stand in front of you today running for Lieutenant Governor. Because I know we can make a difference. We need to make a difference. And honestly, way too much is at stake right now not to go out there and fight to make a difference. So thank you again for letting me share this with you virtually. I look forward to seeing you all again in person out there in Lunenburg. And thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and hope you enjoy the rest of your week. We'll catch you out there soon.